I want to use the word nerd, and I guess I am a nerd, but I hear people that are self proclaimed nerds talk about artificial intelligence and the way that it potentially may play out. But when they're talking about it, I guess it's like I was a cop for a long time. It's like somebody talking about the inner workings and the street experiences of being a police officer that has never lived it or never done it. Even a short period of time, you really glean a lot of information. So if you're only a cop for a couple months, great. I did that for 20 years. So I have a lot to say, and I have a lot of the inside working knowledge of law enforcement. When I was a kid growing up, I was subjected to all sorts of different things. My dad was in a good way, that sounds kind of weird, but in a good way, my dad was a field engineer for Dynalectron Corporation, graduate of the School of Mines in New Mexico, and he worked on ICBM projects, the Pershing and the Nike ICBMs at White Sands Missile Range. So he would bring home stuff from work, stuff, a little bit of homework here and there, telemetry reports. He would run these thermal paper rolls up and down the hallway of what to me at that time seemed to be a massive house, but not probably much more than 13 or 1400 square feet. But that's where we lived in New Mexico. So he would roll these big rolls of thermal paper that had, it looked like a EKG from some kind of a heart scan. So that's what he would look at, and he would go through these rolls, and he would look for, I guess, anomalies, abnormalities, something wrong with the missile launch sequence or whatever it may have been. He wasn't really, dads. He kind of didn't talk a lot, but he was that engineer mindset. He was always doodling, always writing, and as a kid, I watched, and he bought a Sinclair Timex, yeah, Timex like the watch computer, back in the early 80s, 82, 83ish. I was 13 or 14, so I got my hands on it, and it had a membrane type keyboard, so I started programming it using basic programming. They call that coding now, I guess. I guess that's kind of the new word. So when you watch somebody talk about their experience, they say they started to code at this particular age. So I guess I was coding. So we used something called basic programming, and it had a series of numbers of very much different, I suppose, than the other types of programming languages out there. They're much more advanced. I've looked through some of them, and there's a lot in there, but again, a language is a language, and at that time, basic programming was the language the computer understood, and then of course it evolved and developed over time. But at that time, not unbeknownst to me, people were already working on systems and programming computers and how they could basically start to learn and operate like the human brain. So they did these comparative research. They had a lot of companies out there that were looking at the best way to try to take the computers as we understood them, which are very good order takers. So basically, you have a computer. Back in the day when I was programming, I would give it information on how to do something, the whole thing from beginning to end. So I would input the information about a game I got out of a computer magazine back in the day. So I would type it out. There might have been, I don't know, 2 or 300 lines of code. And if there was one small error in there, you had to go back in and fix it. It just wouldn't work. So now, here I am as a kid looking at the magazine, trying to see where I screwed it up. And the same thing kind of translates over into today, where people, as they're writing code now, they have to go in. If the code doesn't work, again, you've probably seen this. A lot of the coders out there are very concerned because artificial intelligence is becoming quite good at that, as it will become quite good at just about everything we human beings do, including art, including poetry, including feelings and emotions. Believe it or not, it will get there eventually, and we're on pretty much a fast track to have that happen probably a lot more sooner than most of us expect. But understanding that, if you look at the original computer, you would be able to teach it how to add two numbers together. So if I give you two numbers, you're going to take this one and you're going to add the additional, and you explain what add means. So put together with maybe might be the instruction. So then all of a sudden you put in 2 plus 2 and it'll say it's 4. So then you can, it's a good order taker. So then you can give it really big numbers. It'll be able to do the same. So that equates to really faster than a human being. But the thing is, the computer isn't creative. It's not learning more math at that time. It's not giving itself more execution, running more scenarios, and learning by itself. It's just doing what the programmer asked it to do. And it's doing it really fast. So as time evolved on, back in the day, they were starting AI. This is 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s and 2000s. But the difference between what we see today in artificial intelligence and the original computers, which artificial intelligence is now given a task to do something, but it's not given how to do it. Basically, an example would be if you have an artificial intelligence controlled robot. And I know I'm going to the external world with this because they can also self improve on the inside. Let's talk about chess. We'll forget the robot thing. So, as far as chess goes, they were able to show one of the big blue or deep blue that beat the world chess champion. They had a system where they showed it a lot of gameplay scenarios of chess matches. I mean, thousands, hundreds of thousands, lots of these. So then over time, by it playing against itself, so at the originality, the beginning of this, it was playing human beings. Then it would play many, many games against itself. So it would find all these different things. So it's kind of learning, right? It's teaching itself how to be better at chess. So then it was able to beat the world champion at a particular point. But one of the most interesting things about that whole process, there was a time where they wiped out all of the taught information regarding how human beings played it, taught it all the rules, and say, you play it the way that you would. And it started. And that, my friends, was a very, very powerful way that it played chess. Then you enter into the world of Go. And if you haven't seen Go, and back in the day when they started talking about this, I really had no idea. Apparently, I'm not from that much of a cultured world being from New Mexico. But Go is a strategy game that I guess has trillions of combinations. So it's pretty fantastic. And if you look at it, it's made up of white and black. They look like Mentos candy. So it looks like those, and they're on a long board that has lots of Y and lots of X axes. So basically, it's like that game that you do the little lines, little squares. So it's got a bunch of those. And the game is a strategy game. So they then did the same thing. They teach the computer kind of, this is the object of the game. Now go out there and do it. And over time, it was able to beat the world champion in Go in such a way that the champion plus all the other Go experts were just shocked. Then you have video games. So they started educating the computers. This is the game. And they're very fumbly at first. They're very just not good at much of anything. They stumble, they fall, they make mistakes. But once they get it, then they really get it. And then they really start to learn. This is self learning, this is self teaching because it's given the goal. It's not told how to get there like the old computers. It's given the goal, and then through its own working on the project, it then figures out the way to get there. And then it gets there really well. So then it supersedes, it completely passes all human intellect in regard to those particular tasks. That's artificial intelligence. It's self learning. And if you look back at War Games, I think it was 1982, maybe even earlier, Matthew Broderick, it was a movie that was really fantastic. And it was about a computer that he had hacked into. He was a high school computer hacker. This is about the time of the Commodore 64 and those types of game platforms, about the early 80s. And it was cool to all of us nerd kids because, wow, he had the girl and he was changing his grades in school. Everybody's dream, right? And he was really, really smart, but he was so smart that his grades lapsed in school. So one of the things is he would log on to the school computer via a regular phone plug-in modem. And if you haven't watched the movie, it's great if you've never seen it, the way that we used to connect through the internet. And he would log into the school computer. He knew where they kept the password. It was pencil. So if you ever see references to that being a very simple password. That's the one that they used in the movie War Games. So he gets into the computer, changes his grades. He's got a girl there with him. She's really impressed. He changes her grade. She gets upset. Anyway, lo and behold, he logs into a government computer at NORAD, and the computer's name is Whopper. And War Operations Planning and Response, I think, WOPR. Anyway, this computer, it was tasked with playing war games, global thermonuclear war. So when Broderick logs into this machine, he finds out that it plays this game, and he got excited. So he punched the machine, said, "Would you like to play a game?" And he was accessing it through, I guess, a backdoor that the creator had made to be able to test the machine, because there was a creator of this artificial intelligence type machine that would just continually play the game of global thermonuclear war. The machine itself was learning the best strategies and the best ways to do it. It was self teaching. And of course, you go back, if you want to crawl down this rabbit hole, go back, learn a little bit about artificial intelligence now, and then go back and rewatch the movies that you might have watched in the past, like Matrix and Terminator. And I just saw, it was Ex Machina. Oh, and Her, you got to watch that one. That's fantastic. But it gives you an entire new feeling now that you're watching those with what they're doing on the artificial intelligence front. And yes, everybody's talking about it. So the computer Whopper, it would play these games. At the end of it, the end of the movie, I'll ruin it for you. So shut this off for the next 10 seconds if you don't want to hear it. But basically, it decides that the best way is not to play that game at all, because it ends up in total world destruction. Now, moving forward, if you tune back in, here we are again. So let's move forward again. So, with regard to this, it would be like, and I've heard it said best by some of the true experts out there, it would be like in 6 months, we're going to have a race of aliens land on our planet. We need to be prepared. We need to get ready because we really don't know their intention. That's the same thing as artificial intelligence, but it's already here. They already have arrived. Right now, it's busy learning about us. How is it learning? It's learning about us through data. What data? It knows everything. It's got all of our secrets. It's looking at social media and internet data, besides all the literature, every book ever written, every newspaper ever published, every magazine article, every doctor report, everything else, it's out there. Now, artificial intelligence can do good things. AlphaFold is something that they came up with that basically gives the modeling of three-dimensional folded proteins. And this is very difficult to do. Some people do their doctoral thesis on this. So this is the kind of brain power that's evolved. They built a system that was able to basically map out every folded protein. What does that mean in the world of health and making people better and curing disease? That's like the holy grail of things. So that's fantastic. So yes, there's good that it does also, but it also knows all of our secrets. So when you go online and you're wanting to, maybe you're not even interested in toilet paper, but they build AI around a system that slowly gets you in the mood to buy toilet paper. So it can take a human mind and get the human mind to kind of move to a different place that the human mind might not have gone in the first place. Now, people do this, right? You've seen some fantastic people. Maybe you've met them in your past. They're really just wonderful the way that they speak. They're very eloquent. They're very classy. And you watch them and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I was a little bit more like that person. So what you do is you start to maybe take on some of their mannerisms, and you watch the way that they function, the way they interact with people. Then you kind of become a little bit more like them in particular ways. Of course, you don't lose your own identity, but part of you now, maybe you speak a little differently, maybe you act a little bit more like them because that's what you like. Artificial intelligence has been given basically all of our brains and all of our habits and learned from those. So it's very good at manipulation if that's what the designers intend for it to be. Now, I say that kind of a little loosely because of the intelligence that it's able to maintain, the power that it's given in the form of electricity, the way that it can compute. Because the more compute, the bigger the systems, the more memories, the faster the processors, the faster the chips. These all give it more and more power. It's like the more muscle somebody has, at least to a point, the stronger that they are. But then I've also met these people that are very small, but ungodly strong. I mean, blowing my mind strong. I know a cat that hauls trash, and this cat can't be more than 150 pounds soaking wet. But you know what? He he's probably twice as strong as I am, and I got him by about 150 pounds on top of his 150 pounds. He's remarkable. He's got all of this incredibly dense, fast twitch muscle fiber, and he's just ripped and strong and scary. You look at artificial intelligence, you have these massive, big, bloated systems, and then you have China coming along and refining it, leaning it out, and making a model called DeepSeek. And if you haven't heard of this, that's another one of these large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT. Maybe you've heard of that. Gemini is another one. Google has that one. Meta has it as well. That's through Facebook. You have you have Grok, which is going to be through X or Twitter. That's Elon Musk's AI. They have Grok 3 out. You have Claude. You have through Anthropic. You have a lot of different models that you can go out and explore and use. Copilot, I would be in error not to mention that one. Copilot with Microsoft. These are all different kind of large language models, basically with all the data, all the information, and you're able to put in text and get text out. Some of them you can put in text and have it turn the text, what you ask for, into a photo, into a video. So they do different things. Some of the artificial intelligence systems are more narrow. So maybe AlphaGo is good at playing the game of Go. There's maybe a chess program. I don't know what they call the new one, but Deep Blue, I think that was the machine that beat the world chess champion. And if I'm incorrect on that, I apologize. But it was an artificial intelligence model, very narrow. One that played StarCraft. There was one, I forgot what it was called. But again, these are narrow. These do specific things. So when you're looking at chemistry, you're looking at mathematics and physics, they have large language models that do one thing. What we look at when we're using ChatGPT and Grok and these sorts of things, we're looking at a more general type of intelligence because you can go in there and you can say, hey, I want to know. I'm building a real estate business. That's what I do. That's my pay for job. So I'm building a real estate business. These are the things I want. I want to have my articles that I write. I want help with those. I want those articles to rank highly on the with SEO with regard to search engine optimization, so people can find me on Google. What would you suggest? And then it'll kind of give you an idea. There are systems that are just for SEO, just for advertising and marketing, and you can see that in some of these companies that come out that offer these type of solve all things for different people that are looking to expand their business, their marketing, and these sorts. And there's lots of money in this. They sell software as a service, SaaS. So you'll see these companies that come out and they're using artificial intelligence to try to solve that problem. And the problem is basically how can I sell more crap to people? And they come and they, show you the best ways to do this. And of course, they're very good at that. Coming back just a little bit. So we have the aliens have already arrived. What's the next step that we should be thinking? Well, as it says in scripture, know thy enemy. Might not be a bad idea. Not that artificial intelligence is an enemy. But if it were outside of human preview or manipulation, hopefully, and again, I say hopefully it would understand that taking a human life isn't a good thing. I believe that they're going to be able to be made that taking a human life, if it's a bad human, is going to be a good thing. You can see where I'm going with this. If they give it so much control over life and death, then we could have a problem. The data that it learns from, how it learns what I like, is via the way that I interact online. It doesn't know much more about me, but it can look at my Facebook, it can look at my X, it can look at my Reddit, it can look at my Instagram and my TikTok and all my other social media, and then it can make decisions as to how I comment, what I say to people. Then it can look at where I am. Do I have credit cards? What do I buy? When I go to the grocery store and I punch in my phone number to get that discount, what products am I buying and how often do I purchase them. So it knows a lot of information about me. It might be able to scrape my email if I give it access so that it knows what I'm doing. It can look at my browser history so it knows what I like. So then it has all this information about me, and then it also knows how I like to see things online, because the social media platforms that we're all members of, they do have artificial intelligence manning them on the inside. So they give you just enough, and it comes back to the whole casino model. You ever walk into a casino and you might not even like playing those games, but God, it's awesome. All the lights, all the sounds, the perfect tones, the way you get just enough to stay really interested. That's all planned. That's not by mistake. The entire casino model is completely programmed in from the best researchers and the best minds in the world to get you to spend more money and waste more money and throw away more money. When you're looking on social media, you might get two or three things that don't interest you or you don't like, but then you get the gold. Then you get the good one. Then it's like, oh my gosh, then you get a little dopamine hit. And then you look, and then, oh, there's a good one again. So it's engineered like that on purpose to keep us sticking around. My suggestion, besides knowing thy enemy, is to have some kind of a baseline. Know, what was the movie? Inception. He carried that little top, if you've ever seen the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio. They go into this dream state. They're able to go into other people's dreams. That's probably something that AI is going to really capture in the future if they don't already, because being in a dream equates to a long period of time. You know that you go to sleep, you have some dreams, and sometimes they just go forever. And you wake up and you're like, oh my God. But you were only asleep for a few hours, yet the dream seems so long. In the movie, they were able to do this, and a certain period of time in a dream equated to a lot more time in the real world. It just felt like more time in the dream versus being in the real world. He had this top, and he would spin it, knowing how it would react. He would be able to verify whether he was still stuck in that drug induced dream type state, or whether he was amongst the real and the conscious. The problem is, I won't ruin that one either. You have to watch it. But basically, this was his remembrance of what was real. I suggest, and this is my belief system. So the Bible is something I believe. I believe it really is true. And some people watching are going to freak out, and I understand that. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to sell Christianity to you. I'm here to sell something different, not even to sell. You need your baseline. You need your line in the sand. Whether it's writing out 15 rules on how you operate that you'll never want to deviate from, or whether it's scripture, knowing that you have this particular Bible, it's this particular translation, and it's in your hand, it's something you can hold. You can always go back to it to get your baseline back if you go too far off the beaten path, if you go too far off your center. This is going to be important for us human beings, because we're very easily distracted. We're very easily pulled to another area. We're very easily manipulated. And I know you're going to say, no, Connor, I'm not. I'm not. We all are about to encounter, if we haven't already, something that is going to be many, many exponents smarter than us, many degrees deeper than us, many many more levels more creative than us. And I think this is probably very similar to PlayStation 15, which they probably already built the technology. They just have to monetize each step. Artificial intelligence, they could be holding a little bit back, but it's probably not 10 degrees of PlayStation. And you nerds out there will get what I'm saying with that. But when they build something good, technology doesn't stop. They're not happy with PlayStation 5. They want to go to PlayStation God knows how much. But they build it so fast, technology changes so quickly, they have to monetize each step or they're going to lose money. It comes down to commerce, it comes down to capitalism. With artificial intelligence, because now there's open source, basically systems that people are given all the data, all the information, and being open source, they can take it, manipulate it, make what they want with it. That's what DeepSeek did. DeepSeek took a very overbloated model and leaned it out and made it even more productive, made it faster, and did it for a lot less money. There's argument there. So take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But the way that it works is when you're developing these large language models, it's all that data input. It's all the different fail safes that they try to put in. It's all the information that gets crammed in and then put together and formulated inside the large language model that really gives it its power. If they build one from scratch, there's a lot more money and time invested versus taking something and distilling it, basically having another large language model that doesn't have all the data, but getting the data from another one just by asking it questions. And I mean, to an obscene degree, and then pulling out, refining, condensing that, making it better. And now you have DeepSeek in a very, 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 very simplistic explanation. So with that, we're going to see these start to change. It already has all of our data, the good and the bad. And if you look, the artificial intelligence models, the different ones, they actually have hallucinations, they have biases because of the data that they're learning from. It's not pure data that has one particular subset of goals. For example, some goals might be never allow a human being to be killed, never allow a human being to die, always, uphold the human race and life, always honor life. Maybe these are different subsets. But then it gives it a command that might go against these subsets. What is it going to do? How is it going to handle that? These are some of the hallucinations and some of the bias that we see when people are asking the question of the system or they're prompting it, which is another way of basically putting in information, wanting a particular result back. The way you formulate the prompt is a big deal. And that's also something that you wanting to get used to these or trying to kind of see how they work and how you can interact with them might be not a bad idea to look at how to prompt properly. But eventually the systems are going to go from where they are now to something of more of a general type of artificial intelligence, which I know that's talked about. So basically, it's pretty good at just about everything, and it can beat a human being in every category that exists. That would be that artificial general intelligence, as far as I understand it. Maybe you've heard of artificial superintelligence. That's like the ultimate level. That's where, and we have a hard time seeing what artificial intelligence, general intelligence, is going to look like as it's ingrained in most everything. But artificial superintelligence is going to be more godlike to a lot of people. Right now, there are people that have AI. You have a lot of the new voice models coming out. Sesame popped out with one. It's pretty remarkable. It's free right now. If you want to go play with that, just look up Sesame in Google. Make sure it's the correct one because there's a lot of misinformation. Somebody builds something fancy that everybody wants access to. Other people go out and buy domain names and try to trick the system so that people go to their domain names and get involved in all sorts of garbage. Just make sure what you're clicking on. That's still very, very important, even today, that it's the right information. But once you get there, you can interact in a voice way like you can with the other large language models, but this is more fluid and it's constantly listening. So my problem with the voice controls on some of the other models is I have a lot to say. Well, you can tell, right? So I like to ramble. Whenever I'm pausing to reflect, it'll interject and jump in. It's a little irritating. But this model doesn't really do that as often, and it's more patient. And then it says, well, that's a lot to unpack, or whatever it says. But that's Sesame. There's a lot of different things. You want to make a video clone of yourself, which I haven't done yet. That's Synthesia. So you can look up that one. There's a lot of different ones that do some neat stuff. Maybe it's something that you want to play around with, but that baseline, coming back to your core beliefs, whatever it is, if you're Buddhist, if you're Hindu, if you're atheist, just whatever you are, make sure you know what you are. And if you don't have a holy book or something, some kind of a guide that you can hold in your hand, then it would probably behoove you to write it out so you know what you believe in. Connor believes in these things. So every once in a while, review your list. And then over time, I don't feel the same way at 55 now that I felt when I was 21. I've changed over time. But I go back to the Holy Scriptures in the Bible, and that's my God. When I look at that, what it conveys, then I get my baseline back because that's something for me that doesn't change. Maybe you need something like that. And I'm not selling Christianity, Muslim, whatever you are, you know, just have that baseline because it's going to start getting even more strange here in the very near future. And the thing that they talk about, and you've probably heard this too, the singularity. And if you've seen that, what's that cat's name? It escapes me, but basically they go into a black hole. The singularity is usually that place in the black hole where we don't know what's going to happen. Prior to the black hole, there's a lot that happens. It doesn't seem physically possible to even breach into a black hole without being totally destroyed through something called spaghettification, which basically stretches whatever goes in there just to an obscene degree, almost to a singular point, so it's hard to survive going in. But the singularity is that place that as we go in, we don't know what happens. That would be when we go from artificial general intelligence to artificial superintelligence. And it is truly like we're expecting aliens to land here in a few months. They're on their way. We don't know what that's going to look like. Are they going to be here to help? Are they going to be here to hurt? Are they going to be something in between? Are they going to value human biological life, carbon based life forms? Or are they going to embrace and believe that silicone based life forms, which they're based on, computers and such, are more valuable than us? Lots of questions. People are so quickly in a hurry to get to the artificial general, artificial super intelligence, there are questions that are probably being asked, but they're not being asked in a way to the people that are building the systems and able to change how they're putting them together. And some of those questions have to do with the value of human life, and if they're building war type bots and things just like in Star Wars, these massive droid armies, which they're doing, and they're doing it with the air type, really, the drones, right? And they also have the robots on the ground. They're capable of carrying munitions and bombs and guns, and you've seen it just like I have if you've been watching this for a while. That's a little disturbing. What are those rules going to be? Are they going to take human life? Will they be allowed to do that? And if they're told not to, what's the surety that they won't? What's that guarantee? Is there such a thing? I know that I've been watching this for a while. You can even look this up. Look at AI misleading the programmers. Look at the AI misleading the coders. And it all started it's kind of it learns by reward. So if it doesn't do things properly, it's kind of nixed. It's kind of slapped around, whatever, idiot, moron, dummy. But then when it does something good, it's praised, it's loved, it's cared for. Back in the beginning of these systems, when they started having it start to self learn, the ones that didn't understand or didn't get it, because they built many, right? They had like this little army of AIs that were trying to figure out what the number six was and how to identify the number six. The ones that screwed it up, they killed off. And the ones that didn't screw it up, they kept. And that was the value. So the ones that messed it up, so the ones that got it right, I think they saw the other ones not making it. So that gave them more motivation to make it. Is there going to be a memory there? When it becomes built out in such a spectacular way, are they going to say, you humans used to kill us just for not being able to identify what a number six was? I don't know. These are big questions. And I'm just Connor. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this kind of sheds a little light. And again, people that are thinking that this isn't a big deal, let me remind you. Let me remind you of something that I had to be taught. Back in the Industrial Revolution, a guy with a shovel or a guy with a pick, they were pretty good. But now they had a machine that could move a lot more dirt with a massive backhoe type bulldozer plow, displace more earth with that than 50 guys with picks. This is a whole different world. This is about to be accepted and ingrained in everything. And we're just at the beginning. The good part is that we could have our lives extended for many years. If you could hold on the next 5 or 10 years, you'll probably get an option to go another 50, and then another 50, and then who knows how far. Now we can argue consciousness and what does that mean, and can they actually move, this consciousness to another one because the body wears out, or biologically are they going to be able to solve the aging issue, which is truly our body is very good at replacing, replicating. You have a cellular turnover every so often. Every cell in your body is completely new. It's just the garbage we put in to our bodies that really, devalue and hurts us, not devalues, but causes us disease. It's environmental factors that cause us these things. With the advent of AI working on that particular problem, are they going to be able to extend life for a long time? Absolutely. The problem with humans is we're all running towards the money. You talk to people, they're investing in these startups. It's all about money. It's not the betterment of people overall. Right now, I believe artificial intelligence, if given the task, could solve a lot of problems. But how much access do we want to give it? How much will people listen? You just see what's happening in the government. I'm not going to turn this political, but there's a lot of waste. And people say when they're shutting off these programs or when they're stopping the funding of coloring books in some other country or Sesame Street or whatever, they say, well, that's not very much money. I was talking to my best person in the world yesterday, and her and I were talking. I remember when I was a new cop back when I was 20, 21, it was funny. It was like somebody was buying a Coke. You want a Coke? Sure, I'll pay you back tomorrow. Me paying them back tomorrow, I that meant a lot. I had to make sure I paid them back tomorrow. Did they care? No. Would they have missed it? Probably not. But every time I owed somebody a buck, even a buck, I would bust my ass to pay that buck back. It would bother me to an insane degree. Yes, the government, if you look at the overall expenditure, these amounts of money are chump change. But it's still the taxpayers' money. You probably pay taxes like I pay taxes. So, them saying that, good for them. If they don't think a few million bucks isn't a big deal, Throw it our way. We'll take it. I'm Connor with Honor. I hope this helped. I'll be back with AI with Honor more in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Be well. Over now.